Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist, and today I'm going to be doing a Volcanic deck profile. So I'm actually doing this one in honor of Pain 96, waiting 1,000 days for Volcanic support. Hopefully soon we'll get some Volcanic support so we can finally end the countdown, but I wanted to do it in honor of them hitting the 1,000th day on the counter for waiting for Volcanic support. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can come part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards like getting your name in the description of every single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month you're a patron along with test stands. And definitely check the comments down below for the legendary Pain 96. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Volcanic Rocket. Volcanic Rocket is a great card for this deck because it's actually one of the best summons that you can use in this deck, because when this card is summoned by any means, you get to add a Blaze Accelerator card from your deck or graveyard to your hand, which is a great effect to be able to use with cards like your Reload to get the exact one you need. We then play 3 copies of Royal Flamestorm Guard. This card is a great card for the deck because it's kind of like a Pot of Avarice. When this card is summoned to your side of the field, normal summon, you can target 4 Pyro monsters in the graveyard, shuffle them all back in the deck, and then draw 2 cards. This card combos really well with our copies of Volcanic Scattershot. Scattershot is one of the best cards in the entire deck because what this card actually does is nuts. It can board wipe all of your opponent's monsters because this card has the ability that when it's sent to the graveyard, you inflict 500 points of damage to your opponent. And if this card is sent to the graveyard for the effect of a Blaze Accelerator card, you can send 2 more copies of this card from your hand or deck to the graveyard and then destroy all monsters that your opponent controls, effectively doing 1,500 points of damage and destroying all their monsters, which is a great effect. We then play 3 copies of Volcanic Shell. Volcanic Shell is a very neat and unique card in this deck because this card lets you once per turn while it's in the graveyard, pay 500 life points to add another copy of Volcanic Shell from your deck to your hand, which is a great effect because it thins the deck and it keeps Volcanics in our hand for our copies of Reload. I then play a single copy of Volcanic Doomfire because this card is a great boss monster. It's very easy to summon to your side of the field because it can't be normal summoned or set. It can only be special summoned by sending a face-up Tri-Blaze Accelerator that you control to the graveyard, which the really nice thing is your Reload actually counts for Tri-Blaze Accelerator. And then during your opponent's battle phase, your opponent must attack this monster with any attack position monsters that they control. And when this card destroys a monster by battle and sends it to the grave, you destroy all monsters that your opponent controls and inflict 500 points of damage to your opponent for each monster destroyed by this effect, which is a great thing just to give you another board wipe and get you a 3k body on the field. We then play a single copy of Destiny Hero Dasher and a single copy of Celestial. The reason I'm playing these is because we can go into the relatively new Destiny Hero Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer, which is an awesome card to combo in this deck because a lot of cards in this deck will actually board wipe and destroy cards on the field. So Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer fits perfectly into this deck with the strategy that I've come up with for this particular build. And it's very easy to actually summon it to your side of the field because we have all sorts of cards in this deck to take a monster away from our opponent and then normal summon one of our monsters, link into an Anaconda, and send Destiny Fusion from deck to graveyard to go into that really awesome boss monster. It also helps out with your copies of Celestial because you can banish it and your Dasher from the graveyard to draw 2 cards if you don't have another spell card in your hand. And once while Dasher's in the graveyard, when you draw, you can reveal the card that you drew, and if it's a monster, then you can normal summon it to your side of the field, which is pretty good just to get you another monster on the field. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Called by the Grave. Called by the Grave is here basically just to stop your opponent from hand trapping you. We play 2 copies of Magic Planter. Magic Planter is here because it combos very well with all the continuous traps that we're playing in this deck, because you can send one of those cards to the graveyard from your side of the field to draw 2 more cards, which is a pretty good effect just to get us a draw 2. We play 2 copies of Foolish Burial Goods to send our copy of Reload to the graveyard so that we can get the effects of it in the grave. We then play 3 copies of Fusion Destiny. The reason we play 3 Fusion Destiny is so we can go into our Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer extremely easily in this deck by sending a copy of Celestial and a Dasher from deck to grave. You can really easily summon that monster to your side of the field, and it is a great boss monster for this deck. So that's it for the spells, guys. Let's get into the traps, because we actually play quite a few traps in this deck. So for the traps, we're going to be playing 2 copies of Summon Limit. Summon Limit comes in very handy in this deck because it kind of shuts down the opponent, especially with some of the cards that we're playing besides this, because neither player can summon more than twice per turn, which is fine because we only are going to summon usually twice per turn anyway. Sometimes we only will normal summon the Rocket, set 4 or 5, and then pass, depending on the field, but it really helps out to use Summon Limit because it slows the game down so your opponent can't swarm you quite as much. We play 3 of the best card in the entire deck, which is 3 copies of Blaze Accelerator Reload. This card becomes Tri-Blaze Accelerator while on the spell and trap card zone, which is really good for our Doomfire, and has the ability that during either player's main phase, you can send 1 Volcanic card from your hand to the graveyard, and if you do, you get to draw a card, which is really good because your copies of Shell will constantly keep your hand stacked with the cards that you need, and if you send Scattershot to the graveyard with this effect, it will actually go off and destroy all the monsters that your opponent controls and inflict 1500 points of damage, which is really good. And it also has the ability that during either player's main phase, you can banish this card from the graveyard to send a Volcanic card from your deck to the graveyard as well, which combos again with your copies of Scattershot to board wipe your opponent, which is just super helpful. We then play 3 copies of Crackdown. Crackdown helps out a lot because it takes an opponent's monster and puts it on our field, which helps out a lot with this deck because using our opponent's monsters to link summon is really good, because by activating this card, you target a monster that your opponent controls and take control of that monster, and then while you control that monster, it cannot attack or activate its effects, but you can still use it as link material, which is really good. We then play 3 copies of Torrential Tribute just to give us a little bit more board wipe, and with all the lava, you need a little bit of water, and this comes in really helpful because when a monster is summoned, it destroys every monster on the field, which again, kind of combos really well with our Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer. We then play 3 copies of Ice Dragon's Prison. Ice Dragon's Prison is really helpful in the deck because it actually outs monsters that can't be destroyed by the Scattershot, the Phoenix Enforcer, or the Torrential Tribute, like cards like Dragoons, because you can target a monster in your opponent's graveyard, special summon it to your field, but its effects are negated. Then you don't have to, but you can banish a monster from both players' fields that have the same type as each other. So for example, if our opponent does summon Dragoons, you can use this card to special summon the Dark Magician, and then when you do, you can banish that copy of Dragoons, which is pretty good. Or you can just summon a monster to your field to link into Anaconda, which is also a great play for this deck. We then play 3 copies of Solemn Judgment, rounding up the deck. Solemn Judgment is here basically just to stop our opponent, and it says no to everything, which is why I'm playing it as a 3-of in this deck, and it really helps out a lot with the strategies because you don't want some of your cards to be stopped, and this card basically protects you from a lot of different effects. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing a single copy of Destiny Hero Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer. You only ever need 1 of this card, but it is absolutely insane. And what this card does is monsters that your opponent control lose 200 attack for each hero monster in your graveyard. So right off the bat, on summon, they're going to be losing 400 attack, which is pretty good. It also has the ability that you can only use each effect of this card once per turn. And quick effect, you can destroy both 1 card you control and 1 card on the field. Now, the interesting thing about this is it doesn't say it targets, which is really good because it doesn't actually target. And if this card is destroyed by battle or by card effect, then you can activate this effect to special summon 1 Destiny Hero monster from your graveyard during the next standby phase, which is really good because you can actually pop it with cards like Torrential Tribute and destroy the entire field, and then this card will revive, which is really good. Or you can use its effect preemptively before your opponent summons to pop a card on their field and pop this on your field, and then activate Torrential Tribute, which is another option for you guys. We then play a single copy of Anaconda, so we can actually link into this to get into Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer just a little bit faster. It helps out a lot in the deck to be able to go into this card. It's really easy to use because you can use cards like Crackdown to be able to take your opponent's monster and then link into this to be able to go into some really crazy plays. We then play a single copy of Access Code just to be able to pop cards on the field. This card comes in very handy for popping back row and popping monsters that you just need to get rid of, or going in for an OTK. You can change it out for Boral Sword if you want to, but it's still a really good card in this deck. We then play a single copy of Unicorn, Unicorn is really good in here because it gives us spins. 1 copy of Phoenix to pop spells and traps. a single copy of the Fire Charmer Ablaze, because we are playing a fire deck, so this card comes in very, very handy. IP Masquerena, because it lets us link summon during our opponent's turn, which is really, really good. And then I play a single copy of Relinquished Anima to gobble up our opponent's monsters that it points to, which is really, really helpful. And a single copy of Link Kuriboh for the last Link monster. This card comes in very handy with your copies of Volcanic Shell. You can actually link summon into either of these two monsters using Volcanic Shell, because sometimes you will open up with 4 back row and a copy of Volcanic Shell, and then you'll just normal summon the shell to your side of the field, set 4, link it away for a Link Kuriboh, and then pay 500 to add another one from your deck to your hand, and then pass against the opponent, where you have basically protection from being attacked, and you have all that back row to be able to stop your opponent as well. For the XZ monsters, we're playing a single copy of number 41, Baguska, because it does lock down the opponent, and a lot of this deck is control based where you're trying to board wipe them, so this card does come in very handy to switch those monsters into defense position. 1 copy of Tornado Dragon to pop spells and traps. 1 copy of Daigusto Emerald, because Emerald can actually get our scatter shots back out of the graveyard and put them back into the deck. 1 copy of number 39, because it lets us go into Utopia the Lightning, which is a great 5,000 attack point monster that can go in for a lot of damage, and it's the reason I played at 1. And then a single copy of Double A Zeus, because Double A Zeus is a great card in this deck to send every card on the field to the graveyard. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed. It's a really awesome thing that Pain has been waiting for this for 1,000 days. Hopefully we'll get support for Volcanic soon, but until then, this is the build that I'm going to be playing, and it's still a really fun deck because it's a great fun like control deck that just keeps board wiping over and over and over again. And with the introduction of Destiny Hero, Destroyer, Phoenix Enforcer, it just makes the deck even crazier to be constantly destroying cards over and over and over again. So anyways, guys, shout out to Pain96. Definitely give him some love down in the comments down below. You definitely will be able to find Pain down there in the comments. I guarantee you it's a Volcanic deck. They're going to be here, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.